Imagine for a second that it is a Tuesday morning. Not a special Tuesday, not a holiday, just a regular, completely unremarkable Tuesday. And your phone buzzes with a notification from your brokerage app. Your investments just deposited money into your account. Again, like they did last month, and the month before that. Enough to cover your electricity bill. Enough to cover your water bill. Enough to fill your refrigerator for the entire month without you doing a single extra hour of work. Now imagine you look at your calendar and realize you could call in sick today or quit your job entirely next month, and those specific bills would still get paid. Not because you work harder, not because you picked up a side hustle at midnight, but because you built something that works while you sleep. That is not a fantasy reserved for hedge fund managers and tech billionaires. That is a specific, calculable, achievable financial threshold. And most people have never been told it even exists. Instead, they're doing what you might be doing right now. Lying awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, running mental math on which bill can wait another week, whether the car payment overlaps with the rent due date, and quietly wondering how much longer they can keep all the plates spinning before one of them crashes to the floor. That feeling is not weakness. That feeling is what happens when intelligent, hardworking people are operating inside a system that was never actually designed to help them win. My name is Dan, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why most people never seem to break free from living paycheck to paycheck. This channel is where I take all of that obsessive thinking and turn it into something actually useful for you. If you're new here and you want to fundamentally transform your financial reality, not just feel better about it for 5 minutes, but actually change the trajectory of your life, then hit that subscribe button right now and tap the like button on this video. It helps this content reach people who genuinely need it, and it tells me to keep going deeper on this stuff. Now let's get into it, because what I am about to show you changed the way I think about money completely, and I think it is going to do the same for you. Here is the biggest lie the financial media tells you, and they tell it constantly, wrapped in glossy thumbnails and bold headlines, that you need to be a millionaire before your financial life starts to feel any different. You have probably seen the articles. How to build your first million. The road to 7 figures. Why you need $1.2 million to retire comfortably. And look, those numbers are not wrong exactly, but the framing is catastrophically misleading. Because what that framing does is take an already anxious person, point them toward a mountain so enormous and distant they can barely see the peak through the clouds, and say start climbing. And most people look at that mountain, feel the full weight of the distance between where they're standing right now and where they supposedly need to be, and they do one of two things. They either get overwhelmed and do nothing, which is the most common outcome, or they start climbing with zero psychological fuel, burning out somewhere around the foothills, convinced they simply do not have what it takes. Neither of those outcomes is your fault. The target was wrong to begin with. The real question you should be asking is not, how do I get to $1 million? The real question is, what is the smallest amount of passive income that would meaningfully change how I feel and function day to day? And when you start asking that question instead, the math becomes human-sized. It becomes something you can actually wrap your brain around and build a plan toward. Because the truth is, you do not need your investments to replace your entire income to experience a genuine, life-altering shift in your financial reality. You just need them to cover the part of your expenses that keeps you up at night, the bare survival costs. The lights, the water, the food on the table. Cover those and everything changes. Not eventually, immediately. Let me make this concrete because abstract financial advice is just noise. Let me introduce you to the Garcias. The Garcias are not wealthy. They are not broke either. They are exactly what most people are, hardworking, responsible, and stretched uncomfortably thin. Marcus works in logistics management. Sophia is a dental hygienist. Together, they bring home about $7,800 a month after taxes, which sounds like a solid household income until you start mapping it against the actual cost of modern life. Their rent is $1,650 a month. Car payments and insurance together run $620. They have got student loans at $480 a month. Childcare costs them $900. Their phone plans are $140. Streaming services and miscellaneous subscriptions add another $80. And then there are the costs that do not get enough attention in most budgeting conversations. The ones that are not optional, not negotiable, and not going anywhere regardless of how disciplined you are. Groceries for their family of four, roughly $680 a month. Electricity, $135. Water and sewage, $65. Internet, which is no longer a luxury, but a fundamental utility for anyone trying to work or educate their children in the modern world, $75. Gas for both cars, $210. Add all of that up, and you're looking at a monthly outflow of around $5,000 to $35, which leaves the Garcias with about $2,765 in what looks like breathing room on paper. But that number disappears fast. Medical copays, home repairs, birthday gifts, school supplies, a busted water heater. Life does not stop billing you just because your budget is already tight. Now here is what I want you to focus on. Look at the bottom of that expense list. Groceries, electricity, water, internet, gas. Just those 5 line items. The ones that represent what it literally costs the Garcias to remain housed, fed, connected, and mobile. Add those up, and you get $1,165 a month. Round that down slightly to account for the fact that internet is the one thing they could theoretically reduce in a true emergency, and you're sitting right around $1,000. $1,000 a month. That is the number, not $1 million. Not financial independence in the full, quit your job on a beach sense. Just $1,000 a month in passive income, enough to permanently, automatically cover the Garcias baseline survival costs. Groceries still bought, lights still on, water still running, internet still connected. Whether or not either of them goes to work this month, that is the target. And when you zoom in on it this way, it stops feeling like a fantasy and starts feeling like engineering. But here's where things get interesting. Because up to this point, we have been talking about $1,000 a month as if it were purely a math problem. Cover these bills, generate this income done. And mathematically, yes, that is exactly what it is. But the actual transformation that happens when you cross this threshold is not mathematical. It is physiological. It happens in your body before it shows up in your bank account. And if you do not understand this part, you will underestimate how profoundly this single milestone changes your life. Here is what is actually happening inside most people who are living paycheck to paycheck. And this is not a metaphor. This is biology. When your financial situation feels genuinely precarious, when you're not sure whether you can cover the basics next month, your brain does not process that uncertainty the way it processes other kinds of stress. It processes it as a survival threat. And in response, your adrenal glands flood your system with cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. In small doses, cortisol is useful. It sharpens your focus, gets you moving, keeps you alert. But chronic cortisol, the kind that comes from sustained financial insecurity, does the opposite. It impairs decision-making. It narrows your focus to immediate threats and makes it nearly impossible to think strategically about the future. It disrupts sleep, which further degrades your cognitive function. And over time, it physically rewires the way your brain evaluates risk and reward. This is not a personality flaw. This is not a lack of discipline or ambition. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do under conditions of prolonged threat. And the research backs this up clearly. Studies on financial stress consistently show that people in states of economic anxiety demonstrate measurably poorer financial decision-making than their wealthier counterparts, not because they're less intelligent, but because a brain in survival mode is optimized for right now, not for next year. Now flip that. What happens when your baseline survival costs, your groceries, your electricity, your water, your internet, are permanently covered by income that arrives whether you work or not? Your nervous system gets a signal it has probably never received before. You are safe. Not rich, not set for life, but safe. And that signal, that small but undeniable shift from I might not be okay to I will be okay at the most fundamental level, begins to physically lower your cortisol levels. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning, rational decision-making, and impulse control starts coming back online in a way it simply cannot when you are in full survival mode. You start sleeping better. You think more clearly. You start seeing opportunities you genuinely could not see before, not because they did not exist, but because your brain was too flooded with stress chemistry to register them. But there is another layer to this that is even more immediate and practical, and I call it walking away money. Think about the last time you were at work and something happened that made you genuinely angry. Maybe your manager dismissed your idea in a meeting without explanation. Maybe you were asked to take on a project that should have come with a raise but did not. Maybe the environment was toxic, the hours were unreasonable, or you were being treated with a fundamental lack of respect. What did you do? If you're like most people, you smiled, you nodded, you absorbed it, because what is the alternative? You need this job. You need this paycheck. Your survival costs are not going anywhere, and neither is your leverage, because right now, you are negotiating from a position of sheer desperation, even if neither you nor your employer is saying that out loud. That is what financial desperation does to your power. It eliminates it, quietly, completely, without anyone having to say a word. Now imagine the same scenario, but this month $1,000 landed in your account from your investments. Your groceries are covered. Your utilities are covered. You walk into that conversation with your manager and something is different, not arrogant, not reckless, but grounded. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, there is a quiet voice that says, I do not have to tolerate this. I have options. And that voice, that tiny shift in your psychological position, changes the tone of every professional interaction you have. You negotiate your salary differently. You push back on unreasonable demands differently. You carry yourself differently. And other people can feel it, even when no one says anything directly about money. This is walking away money. Not, I can quit today and retire to a beach money. Just enough financial cushion that you're no longer negotiating from a place of pure desperation. And $1,000 a month in passive income is enough to get you there. So let's talk about how you actually build it. Because inspiration without a roadmap is just a motivational poster, and you deserve better than that. To generate $1,000 a month in passive income, $12,000 a year from a standard investment portfolio, you need approximately $150,000 invested, earning an 8% annual return. That 8% figure is not aggressive or speculative. It is roughly in line with the historical long-term average annual return of a broad, diversified index fund tracking the S&P 500 when you account for dividend reinvestment and compound growth over time. It is not guaranteed year over year. Markets go up and markets go down, but over a long enough horizon, this is the kind of average return that is proven realistic for patient, consistent investors. Now I want to address something immediately because I know what some of you are thinking. $150,000? That might as well be $1 million from where I'm standing right now. I hear you, and I'm not going to minimize how large that number feels when you are currently living with financial stress. But I want to show you what building toward $150,000 actually looks like in real time, broken down into steps that are proportional to where most people actually start. Step 1 is not investing $150,000. Step 1 is building your foundation. Before you put a single dollar into market, you need a genuine emergency fund. Not a round number for the sake of it, but 3 to 6 months of your actual baseline survival expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account, somewhere earning 4% to 5% annually rather than the 0.01% a traditional bank account offers you. For the Garcias, that means somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 parked somewhere accessible and growing. This is not glamorous. It is not going to make you rich, but it is the financial equivalent of having a stable base camp before you start climbing. Without it, a single unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car repair, a sudden job loss, forces you to liquidate your investments at potentially the worst possible time, wiping out months or years of progress in one panicked withdrawal. Step 2 is consistent, automatic investment. Once that emergency fund is in place, the goal is to invest consistently into a broad, diversified index fund, something like a total market ETF or an S&P 500 index fund, inside a tax advantage account like a Roth IRA or a 401k, especially if your employer offers any matching contribution. If your employer matches your 401k contributions up to a certain percentage and you are not taking full advantage of that match, you're leaving part of your compensation on the table every single pay period. Get that match first. Always. Now, let's run the actual numbers on building to $150,000, because this is where the math starts to feel genuinely encouraging. If you invest $500 a month into a diversified index fund, earning an average annual return of 8%, here is what compound growth does for you over time. After 5 years, you have contributed $30,000 of your own money, but your portfolio is worth approximately $36,700 because your returns are compounding. After 10 years, your contributions total $60,000, but your portfolio has grown to roughly $91,500. After 13 years, you cross the $150,000 threshold. Your passive income engine is built, and from that point forward, at 8%, you are generating approximately $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month, without touching your principal. Now, $500 a month is not available to everyone right now, and if it is not available to you, that is not a moral failing, that is a budget reality. If your current margin is $200 a month, start with $200 a month. At $200 a month, at 8%, you reach $150,000 in approximately 24 years. That is longer. That is true. But it is not nothing. It is a trajectory. And a trajectory is everything compared to standing still. If you can find ways to increase your income or reduce your expenses over time, even incrementally, and redirect that margin into your investments, the timeline compresses dramatically. Going from $200 a month to $300 a month shaves years off that timeline. Going from $300 to $500 shaves more. Every additional dollar you consistently invest does not just add linearly. It multiplies through compounding, which means early progress. Even small early progress has a disproportionately large impact on your eventual outcome. The most dangerous financial myth of all is that small amounts do not matter. They matter enormously. Not immediately, but compounding is a slow process that becomes a violent one on the back end. And the people who understand that are the ones who build the engine. Step 3 is patience with a plan. This is the part nobody wants to hear, but it is the part that determines everything. Investing is not a strategy you execute once and walk away from. It is a habit you build, automate, and protect from your own impulsive reactions to short-term market noise. When a market drops 20%, and it always does at some point, the instinct is to pull your money out and wait for things to stabilize. That instinct will cost you more than almost any other financial mistake you can make, because by the time things feel stable enough to get back in, you have already missed the recovery. The people who stayed invested through the crash are the ones who capture the rebound. Automate your contributions so they happen without you having to make a decision each month. Decide on your investment allocation once, based on your timeline and risk tolerance, and do not change it reactively based on headlines. And review your progress annually, not daily, not weekly, annually. The more you watch your investments, the more opportunities your emotional brain has to talk your rational brain into doing something expensive. Here is what I want to leave you with, and I mean this as directly and sincerely as I know how to say it. Real wealth is not a number in an account that makes other people's eyes go wide when you say it out loud. Real wealth is freedom. It is choices. It is the ability to make decisions about your time, your career, and your relationships from a position of security rather than desperation. It is what happens when your survival is no longer entirely dependent on whether your employer is in a good mood this quarter. The financial system is set up to make you feel like the only version of success worth chasing is the enormous, flashy, trophy-on-a-shelf version. And while you are busy comparing your situation to that impossible benchmark, you miss the fact that a much smaller, quieter milestone, $1,000 a month in passive income, could completely transform your daily experience of being alive. Not someday, not when you retire, now, in the way you sleep at night. in the way you walk into a room at work, in the way you think about your future. That is the tipping point. That is the threshold that takes you from running the midnight math to resting. The Garcias do not need to be millionaires to stop lying awake at 2 a.m. They need an investment portfolio that covers their groceries and their utility bills and their internet connection. They need the quiet, steady confidence of knowing that the baseline of their life is no longer entirely at someone else's mercy. And so do you. Building your first $1,000 in monthly passive income is not the end of the journey. It is the moment the journey stops feeling like survival and starts feeling like something else entirely. Something that has been in short supply for a lot of people for a long time. Something worth every consistent, automated, patient monthly contribution it takes to get there. It is peace of mind, and it is entirely within reach. Start the math. Build the habit. Trust the compound. And the midnight ceiling staring stops sooner than you think.